that's okay. All right. Seems like we're okay.
YouTube says
So
we are
seems
12 minutes away from starting.
I might have scheduled that.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So we're on YouTube. So we're live now. So I have here with me 3 friends. We might be joined by other people on the chat and some other appearances on the live call later. So I can see. For those of you who watch from YouTube, we actually have a link that I'm going to publish on YouTube that you can join the actual live event that is happening on Riverside. And that's because that way you'll be able to interact on the chat here. And let me see. Okay, great. And let me see where the chat is. All right, and we have a chat, so feel free to drop. We don't have a producer here, so I have to be the host and the producer. There's like usually this role of the moderator that we don't have today. Any questions or comments here? Okay, so welcome everyone. It's Nono Martinez Alonso here. I gather all of you that are watching and might watch or listen this thing later, and these 3 folks that we have here to celebrate the 100th live stream of my YouTube channel. So I do a YouTube channel on creative AI and also release podcasts as often as I can with people I think have interesting stories to tell and things that have to do with creativity, technology, and culture. I've met these 3 folks different points in life. Jose Luis Garcia del Castillo is right now a professor at Harvard and also has his own YouTube channel called ParametricCamp, where he does videos on computational design, robotics, and many other things. So that's pretty cool. And he's a long time friend. I think we share a lot of things. One of the things that we share, and also with Kyle, is that we're trained as architects, but we decided we wanted to kind of leave that branch of things and focus more in coding and teaching other designers how to code, right? We have here Kyle Steinfeld connecting from, Jose Luis is connecting from Cambridge, Massachusetts, even though he has the background of my living room. And we have Kyle Steinfeld joining from Auckland. I actually was able to see both Kyle and Adam 2 weeks ago in San Francisco. So Kyle is at UC Berkeley. He's also an architect who codes and tries to teach other people who code. We actually met at Smart Geometry as Adam, and he's used generative AI models in design studios from the early days, including Pix2Pix models and other experiments I will see, Artbreeder and other stuff. And that's something that, it's similar to some of the early experiments that I also did with Pix2Pix. And then we have Adam Menges, who previously worked at companies like Apple. He co-founded Lobe.ai that tried to bring deep learning to everyone, right? And that was acquired by Microsoft, and it has been productized into a UI that you can use to drag and drop images from your computer and train image classification models. Right now, he's working on design tools to power basically design tools that are powered by AI. So that's, next generation tools. And I have to say, I also wanted to bring Cristobal Valenzuela. He couldn't make it today from Runway ML. And we might be joined by Joel Simon later, who's the creator of Artbreeder and Gunbreeder, and that is creating AI tools, but in his case, more focused toward artists, not designers or architects, but artists. So so this is my introduction of all of you. I just wanted to basically have a time with some friends to celebrate 100 live streams and see what you guys think of what's going on in the world of AI for creativity and for designers and art. So, you can.
Can I take a second to publicly congratulate you for 100 live streams? Whoa!
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
It's pretty insane. As a fellow YouTuber, I very much appreciate the level of work, commitment, preparation. It's ridiculous to achieve that mark. So very good job, Nono. I really commend you for that.
Right on. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. And in the live stream, we've tried to look at many different models. I actually, I think at least in 3 different live streams, we use Lobe.ai from Adam. So That was a really nice tool because anyone, had accessibility to it, to just download an app and train models. So that's, that's kind of also the work that we try to do, like bring tools to other designers. All right, so why don't I stop talking a bit and let you guys chip in. So Jose Luis actually told me before, like what we thought, right? The role of human mind is going to be in creativity when we have so much models that can make decisions for us and uh, can do everything for us in terms of craftsmanship and also solving problems. So yeah, what do you think?
It's a
Kyle,
crazy,
for
interesting
example?
subject. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go, Kyle.
It's like round robin here.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to get a feel for the group and how to stake out the most interesting, productive, perhaps antagonistic position relative to where we are. I feel like all of us here on the call are into this stuff, right? When we've been invested for a while in various kind of ways. And now we're at a moment when it's like suddenly everyone else figured out that this toy is really fun to play with, right? And like the things are kind of out there in the culture in a way that's in a much more widespread sort of way than it's been in the past, right? And we could talk. I'm sure we could each talk about our experiences going way back and experimenting with this stuff and how difficult it was and how small the community was in comparison to today. I find myself in this moment kind of pivoting my position, just like in conversations like this. And what I mean is, in the past, I've been sort of evangelizing for the possibilities of ML in creative practice, right? I've been one of the cheerleaders. And now that it's out there in the world, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, right? And not that we shouldn't be doing it, not at all. It's that, the kind of a hype cycle has started up, right? And so I think it's more about sort of but before I was sort of bending the curve up, and now I feel like my job is to like bend the curve down a little bit. So anyway, that's all context in which to say, your question was, how will things be different when tools like this are out in the world, out in the culture, they can do so many things for us. So my antagonistic response is, will things be different at all? Right? Like what's the same about creative practice when using these tools? And when I think through like the really interesting applications of ML and creative practice, it's actually very similar. Like the role of this technology, the creative practice hasn't actually fundamentally been altered by it. It's just been enhanced and extended and amplified. But the position of it is actually the same in many ways. But I don't know. I'd like to. I could dig into like why I think that or what I mean. But what do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's. Yeah, I definitely think it's like going along, like it's all a pattern along the same arc, right? Like the going from like sketching to using Photoshop and having like a paint bucket tool to like sort of fill in this whole thing for you, right? And now you have like a much better sort of like more advanced version of that. It feels, at least like I spend my days thinking a lot about like image generation in particular, much less like the ChatGPT and other things that are like maybe are more topical even. But they feel like they're really, really amazing how they work, and the like results you get are pretty incredible. Like I don't know if you guys have played around with this like instruct model at all, but the fact that you can take, a shoe and turn it into dryer lint, or take a picture and like turn that guy's suit into like feathers or black obsidian, or make it out of diamonds. You can do that in Photoshop, but it just takes forever, and it takes like a skill set that takes years to get really good at. And now you can have a pretty reasonable result with like barely a sentence worth of typing, which all of that feels like really, really good, really like, and it also feels like it's just more of the same in a lot of ways, even if it's still like a step function in a certain direction. It is still kind of along the same arc.
So like having things that were previously the domains of experts now in the hands of novices. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Like in the hands of more people, and on the like image generation front, like any of the like more the reason to sort of like curb things down, like any of the like doomsday type conversations aren't as applicable, at least to me. Like, I feel like maybe illustrators will have like a different job, but my hope would be like after these models have gotten better and they've made more people able to like take the thing in their mind and be able to put it on the screen, the world would just be like a more colorful, interesting place. That would be like the best term, like the best outcome for me. Like, that's what I hope happens. I think there are a lot of opportunities for like beautiful illustrations and like work in our day-to-day lives that just don't exist right now because they can't. Like, for instance, like well-funded authors. I read a lot of like fantasy books in the evening, right? Like, to put me to sleep. And well-funded authors will have like at the beginning of each chapter, like beautiful illustrations and like these world-building elements that more like indie authors can't afford that, right? So that would be an ideal end for me, is that now even an indie author can have like all these beautiful illustrations as you're reading from the book.
I wish Joel were here. He's just been working on something that he was generous enough to let my children test, where it's about exactly this, about world building, and it uses well, he should come and explain it, but I'll just say that like my kids were so into it because it's supporting world building in the style of like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, but they could do so much more, right? Like just by interacting with this tool than they could, on paper. But it was really exciting for them, and it underlines this point of like capacities that were previously the domain of experts are now in the hands of more people, and that could fundamentally change things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So when Kyle was mentioning this idea of the hype cycle, or like AI is coming, so now I'm the advocate of AI, but now the AI is here, I'm kind of like a little bit of the devil's advocate, like I very strongly relate to that. I think I've gone through like a similar roller coaster of perception. But I think in my case, something that I've noticed is that my attitude, or like the position that I take very often in these two sides of the conversation, depends very much on who am I talking to, actually. Because like, I have a class at the university where it's all about HCI, it's all about augmenting creativity, it's all about partnership with digital agents, and of course, like the class started with inquiring robotics as creative partners, and has totally shifted now to machine learning and neural networks and real-time conversations, and how can we become better designers in conversations with them. So in that sense, when I'm a professor, I am the one who advocates for all these tools. This is what's coming, this is how we can harness them, etc., etc. However, I have also found myself in the position where I've been discussing with my colleagues, like other professors at the school, like friends who are not in the field, etc., etc., who like are the ones who have this energy against neural networks, and have this energy of like, oh, what is going to happen with like craft and like knowing how to draw by hand, etc., etc. And like you have to bring up like the idea that at the end of the day, all technological advances are about one, shifting the focus of where the skill comes. If it's more about like labor skill, or if it's more about upskilling your brain, but also that there's nothing really fundamentally different of this technological revolution, at least in the terms of creativity, than it has been with, for example, the advent of computer. When computer came and we could do CAD and we could do parametric design, etc., etc., like the world of design was coming to an end because the computer could do all these designs for you, but it didn't really materialize in that sense, So there's always like this back and forth conversation, like almost like the power struggle between who has the old ways and who is bringing the new ways into the creative fields, Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think, one related to what Kyle mentioned, I've been live streaming as, not the 99 live streams have been about machine learning, but I always got the thing like many people who came from a design background or even from computer science, if they don't know machine learning, it's a really high barrier of entry. So it was many times too advanced for other people to take a look, right? I was also looking at advanced code, just trying to go through it, but it's hard to get into it, right? And the things that we've done now is that new user interfaces, which is funny, that just G Radio, this library that basically does web forms for machine learning is what in Hugging Face is brought these models to many people. It's like a really dumb UI. It's basically web UI that has existed for the last 20 or 30 years or more. It's like nobody thought about just making a form to use machine learning models on the web until 3 years ago or something, right? So even that simple thing brought these models to thousands or like millions of people, right? ChatGPT is basically WhatsApp with AI, right? So I always find that thing, like we were, as you guys were saying, we're trying to get, for example, Pix to Pix. It's like, it works, but it doesn't work. Like it doesn't work as well as you want it. So you want to find like, let's train this as good as you can, blah, blah, blah. But then like scroll like 8 years later and Stable Diffusion does it too well, or Midjourney does it too well that the game is over. Nobody, you don't need to train anything else because it already does everything really well. You just have to do prompting, right? So I think we're at that point. It's like, okay, the game is over. Like image generation is like done. We just need to find new user experiences or something. And I think, Adam, you're trying to work on that space. And then the other thing, which, we think about that craft that is going to get lost. And just last weekend, for an illustration I wanted to do, I actually was walking between a lot of olive trees to sit down with a chair and for an hour sketch an olive tree, because I wanted to have a sketch of an olive tree. And I was thinking in my mind,
your life, Nono, is just like amazing.
It's these problems of mine, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, to put that phrase, like I'm gonna spend an hour like basically drawing like leaves of a tree, right?
Right.
Who would? I become lazy. I say like probably this is something I could generate with AI or something like that. So if that have been practicing sketching for a long time, I get lazy thinking about having to do all that detail that could be now automated, it's definitely like a lot of people are going to not even try to learn the craft, right? So I think what's happening is that we went from manual work to like digital manual work, which is like Photoshop, Illustrator, all these things. And now we're getting to like even skip the work, right? Like all this Photoshop and all their interfaces are going to disappear because the computer are going to do it for you. But yeah, I don't know. I think there is that thing of like craft experts gonna disappear or become a really niche thing, and then the laziness of if AI can do this. Jose Luis is nodding, and I'll shut up.
I mean, weaving and knitting and crocheting and all the textile and fabric arts have not disappeared at all, and we've gone over 150 years of automation in the textile industry. It has been highly automated. It has been made more accessible for a cheaper price range to everyone, basically. So now everyone can get very cheap clothing, but there is still an appreciation for handmade stuff. There is an art for handmade stuff, and there are many, many people interested in learning it. And I'm saying that as a recent new crocheter, that I am finding joy and I'm finding appreciation in making. I know I could automate it, but it's not the point. Vinyl is not gone. It's only like kicking back even stronger somehow. It's not gonna catch back to the level of Spotify or MP3s or whatever, but there will always be like an appreciation for handmade, human-made stuff, either by the people who make it or people who may consume it. Just like very soon we will have an appreciation by books that very clearly state on the cover, this book was written by a human being, not generated by an AI. So that's going to happen. Exactly we're all going to see that in our lifetimes very soon.
There is somebody who's created like a tag that says made by a human, like when you see like download on the App Store, like one of those tags to attach to these things. And the last thing I'll say is like, I just thinking right now, like I realize I'm one of the only ones from my architectural school class that actually continue sketching, and that's because I want to. I don't need it for anything. It's like it had already disappeared, right? It's a craft that you need to hone if you want, but it's not necessary in our world anymore.
I want to build on this idea of craft, craft and like capacities or skills that that we've discarded or we moved away from as a culture, right? So you're absolutely. I love the example of textiles, Jose Luis. But from a broader, and it's cool that you're into it. right? And and some people are. But I would imagine, if we look at it from a kind of larger societal point of view, most people aren't. It has a very different position in society than it used to. People are not making their own clothing typically anymore. I bet if you got a hole in your sock, you would probably, I don't know if this is true or not, would you repair it or would you buy a new sock? Right? Even though you are a knitter or like a seamster or what, I don't know the term, excuse me, but that's a very different thing. It has a very, very different position of society, and we are all changed by it. And I think that's the really interesting thing about when in moments of technological change, like the one that we're in now, it's not my attention goes less to what can this thing do for us, for me, what can I do with it, and more, I think the right way of thinking about it to me is what will this do to us, right? Like how will we be changed collectively by this thing, right? And yes, we all, like there's always going to be a turnover. Like we're climbing the sort of ladder of abstraction as humans. We're getting more powerful and going from doing things to working with systems that do those things to working with systems that make those systems do things, right? Kind of climbing that ladder of abstraction. But there are things that are lost along the way, and it's a trade-off. We become more powerful, but we lose those lower level things which tune our minds in certain ways, right? A classic example for me is like we no longer, I don't know anyone who has the capacity to like navigate by the stars, right? To know like which direction they're by looking at the sky. But this is something that's fundamental for people just being in the world, whatever, 100,000 years ago. And we no longer have that capacity. I imagine our brains work differently as a result, right? We've been wired differently and can do different sorts of things, and it's a trade-off. I'm not saying we should all learn how to navigate by the stars, but I wonder how we will all be changed, for example, by ChatGPT, which is one level abstraction above, I don't know what, the 5-paragraph essay, argumentative essay. And when I lose,
or just like research,
right, like analytical thinking, right? Yeah. I don't know if that's something I want to offload to a machine.
Right. Like I think there are a lot of things where I'm actually happy that I'm not navigating by the stars or doing like a number of things, right? Because it's freed my brain to go do other things. I don't make any of my clothes, but I know who makes them. But like, I don't. And like right. A machine does a lot of the work, right? Yeah. I'm glad you remember.
Yeah.
But the fabric is made by a machine, but the I don't know. There are some things that maybe would be lost. I guess like the only, or like maybe the biggest one that concerns me, and it's a little outside of AI, although maybe you could like tie it back in, is just like loss of attention span. I think that's one that feels a little bit more valuable than maybe like one craft. Like all the things we've talked about so far are just like a different craft, and that still feels like good and human, and you should engage with that craft, and it's really interesting. But I mean, there have been a ton of studies on this that just show like attention spans across users or across people, users. Wow, I live in a weird world. Across humans is going down, right? Now TikTok videos are like 15 seconds because that's all we got, and there probably is something lost there. Like I'm reminded of was it Galileo? I don't know, one of the old Greek philosophers who was like really angry at the book. He's like, this thing's horrible because everyone's gonna forget how to memorize things. Like memorization is a skill that you learn. It's a craft. And in some ways he was right? Like we don't really remember in the same ways that he would try to. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe the loss of attention or the like shorter attention span is the only or maybe one of the bigger like changes in humanity that is tracked and feels bad intrinsically for some reason.
But it's so beautiful that you bring in the book example, because I grew up in an environment, in a society when I was a kid that was not very technologically advanced. And then I cannot tell you how many times I was told by the adults in my environment that watching too much TV will lead to me having no imagination. And that TV was a killer of imagination for kids, and that I should read a lot of books, that was the only way where I could really, really grow and nurture my imagination, which I did, and I'm fine. But like, that speaks to me to the, how can I say this? Like how we don't foresee how basically it's all like a game of shifting. Like, because for me, the idea now that if I watch TV, I'm not more creative, it just sounds ridiculous, because like, then what is the opposite end of that? If I go into a dark room with no stimuli or excitement whatsoever, I'm going to be the most creative and the more imaginative person in the world. It just sounds ridiculous to me. So that's why one of the aspects that I like about this idea of working with neural networks, having image generators, et cetera, is how they are complementary, they are suggestive, they are partners that we can use to enhance our creativity, to inspire us, to give us new ideas, et cetera, and how at the end of the day, like Weiner was saying in the 40s, like, we are tending towards a society where the only real power that we have is not anymore strength, which has been taken over by machines. It's like creative capacity in the brain, and that would be the very last frontier. And I think what machine learning is challenging now is that creative capacity is not anymore about the generation of content in itself. It's about the smart capacity to curate that content, which is where we are still a little ahead of, where we're still like remain purely human. I don't know when that will be taken over by machines, but that's my hope. And we will hopefully lead to a society where that's the only job we all have, just like being smart curators of things, you know.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of I had a professor in undergrad named Gregory Ulmer, who writes. He's a philosopher, and he had this idea called electracy, which is the digital media equivalent of literacy. And so he was writing in the 90s, but his argument went something like this: like the transition from an oral culture to a literate culture, to a culture without writing to a culture with writing, involved, of course, enormous societal transformations and the development of forms of thinking, forms of being that are quite different, right? The creative act at the kind of pinnacle of the creative act for oral traditions is storytelling. The pinnacle of the creative act in literate traditions is the argumentative essay, right? It's like the most highly developed form in that way of thinking. And there's something new coming in like that's being brought by digital media and other forms of communications, which is, as for him, as large of a shift as a shift from an oral tradition to a literate tradition to, he calls it it's like digital media, basically. To be literate in digital media is to be electorate. That's like his term. But there's like very different ways of thinking, and our brains are going to be wired in very different ways. And so I can't help but seeing what we're talking about now. And I didn't really make this connection prior to this conversation, I have to say. But it seems like the way that we're working with systems and AI as a creative act seems very much in line with this way of thinking about things. Yeah, it's like so we have to. There's a Wikipedia article link in the chat, but it's almost like earlier in the call, I was lamenting or worried and expressing anxiety about the loss of the 5-paragraph essay. ChatGPT is going to kill. I've got students right now in a composition class that are cheating by writing essays in ChatGPT, and it sucks. I don't want to have this like antagonistic relationship where I'm trying to hunt down AI generated content. It's not the way I think forward at all. It's that we have to understand how this is going to facilitate new ways of thinking. Right? New ways of being. It's like when I moved to San Francisco and I was on the hunt for like New York pizza. I had to just stop at a certain point. It's just not here. And I need to like embrace this place for what it's got great donuts. I don't understand that, but it's got good donuts and no problem. Stop looking at the pizza. It's not here. Embrace where you are.
So what is the new form of the 5-paragraph essay in the electracy?
Well, I think it hasn't been developed yet, right? So I think that, and it's been a long time since I actually studied with Ulmer, so I'm probably misrepresenting him in some way. But to me, it seems like when writing was invented, it's not the development of forms of writing that were refined over millennia. It took us a long time to get to the 5-paragraph essay as a form of argumentation after writing was invented, thousands of years, right? I mean, here we're only a few decades into digital media, cultural change. So I don't think we've invented it yet, but it's going to be different.
I think, in a bit of a different note, going back to what we were talking before about craft, is that there are still many ways in which people, like humans, can express themselves, right? Can find a creative outlet. Oh, we have a guest here. So we have a way of creative expression for humans can be simply doing certain things that your job requires, because if we talk about hobbies, that's something that you have to kind of find on your own and define them. But even on your job, right, some people find expression there so they don't have to think about it. So what is AI going to do when it feels the job that some people do that don't have that possibility to define their own hobbies or find human expression in other or new things? And just 1 second, I'll do a pause. We have a new guest here that just showed up I'm jealous. You're in a sunny courtyard or something. Stochastic Labs. I don't know where you are.
Said the guy drawing sketches in an olive tree orchard.
I can't complain. Sorry. So just a little pause to introduce who joined us. So Joel Simon, I met this awesome guy 2 weeks ago, or like a week and a half ago, in Oakland, in San Francisco, and the Bay Area. And the difference between everyone else and him in this call is that he's been exploring the creation of AI tools for artists. And some of us are more focused toward designers or architects and other type of tools. But when you leave the design requirements outside, you have a lot of more possibilities to think out of the box for artists, as I was just talking about. Self-expression, and it doesn't need to solve any problem. It just needs to be art and maybe inspire people in some way, or maybe entertain you in a way. So Joel Simon, you can maybe know him by, if you know what Artbreeder is, and he's a creator of Artbreeder that can be accessed at artbreeder.com. And he leads Morphogen, that is a group of artists and technologists that work trying to make playful and accessible tools for artists with new technologies. So yeah, hi Joel.
Hey, welcome Joel.
Hey.
I actually feel like you and I will have a decent amount in common. I know of Artbreeder. It's amazing. It's great work. And then I had worked on Lobe before this, and now I'm working on a new product that a bunch of art directors are using to help find art direction. So like explore a bunch of different styles. I don't know. It feels like there'll be some synergies there.
Yeah, we were talking about, Adam and I were talking about like introducing you two. I didn't have the chance last week, but here you are together. So Joel, maybe we can shift gears. We were talking about how AI is gonna change the paradigm of how we create, or how the human mind is used for creativity. And I was talking about human self-expression. Maybe you can tell us. Well, Jose Luis has. Yeah, you go.
Can I take a moment to very strongly encourage the audience to check Joel's keynote at the latest Acadia conference, and the conversation afterwards with Kyle? It was really, really freaking good.
Yeah, and you should probably put a link on the chat, and we'll share it later on the show notes. And yeah, so the question, maybe the premise to change a bit gears, would be like, how do you think is different to create tools for artists instead of for designers? Joel.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Great to meet both of you. Your work's been mentioned to me, so I'm excited to chat. And sorry I had to come in a few minutes late. Yeah, I'm in Berkeley where Kyle is also. I think Kyle's is 15 minutes that way. I don't know why he's not outside.
I'm in a cave. I'm in a dark cave. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think it's a good question, because I had actually prior to getting into this experimented with generative architecture tools, things for professionals. I think early on in the Gambreeder days, I'd like talk to professionals also about like workflows and having it work with them. I think one of the things that was really nice about not tailoring it toward like an existing workflow was that it allowed it to kind of embrace the medium a little bit more. Like early Gambreeder, what was fun about it was when you actually like broke it in a way. You would jump out of the latent space in some crazy direction. You got these distorted faces. You would interpolate them, and it was super weird. I think the weird is what to unpack there. It's something that hasn't really been seen before. You don't know what you might use it for, but it's compelling. Weird can be compelling, and so I like to use the word weird a lot because I think it's like a kind of a good undefined thing. And so at least for working with artists, I feel like they resonated with the weird. Professionals are like, I have a workflow and I need it to be faster than what I do currently, or make my current workflow better. And that seemed like a really hard reach to take something that they're really good at and make it like cheaper or better. But it seemed like working with the grain of what it was is like, well, it's weird and it's fun, and artists like to figure out what they can do with weird, fun things. And that was what kind of resonated with me as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when I did my master's thesis with Panagiotis Michalatos, he actually pointed that out, like that I should spend some time, stop the development of the tool and play with it. And he pointed out how the accident, right? When you use, I was actually, Stable Diffusion now knows about everything, but I was training Pix-to-Pix models for like specific types of flowers. And he said, like, you should try to, see what it means when you misuse a tool that is meant to draw flowers for like drawing a car or doing something else, right? So celebrating that accident that you're calling the weird, right? So that presents interesting moments where I think, it's kind of like trying to let the AI interpolate to places that don't exist, or you didn't meant to teach it something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's one thing I think Jose brought up, that like these tools are at their best when they're a creative like companion. And I think part of what makes a great creative companion is presenting you with new ideas that I've companion, and in some ways, Stable Diffusion, or like the latest generation of the stuff, is like the best at producing weird, cool things that feel creative and feel like distinctly new ideas.
Yeah. And I want to point out from the chat here, we have live Beetle that is mentioning how, he thinks that with his experience in ChatGPT or generative tools, it solves the purpose of actually getting to the outcome, but it doesn't bring the sense of achievement or fulfillment that, creating work by hand does, or like doing it yourself. Because even if somebody praises your work, it's not done by you and you don't feel that sense. I think that's a really nice kind of comment on what we've been talking about, one of those aspects.
Yeah, totally. I've thought a lot about this, and I think like one factor in like how much like ownership you have over the thing you create and how much you feel like you accomplish something is like directly related to the amount of work you put into it. And if all you do is type a sentence and you get something out, it doesn't feel particularly good. It's like, oh, cool, give me like a thing, but I don't feel like any ownership over that. It's not mine. It was just created. But if you spend a lot of time crafting, like if you're doing a ton of prompt engineering, which is like a really shitty way of doing generating images, and there's got to be like better ways to do this. But like if you spend a lot of time crafting, you've got these like, I mean, some artists out there have these like list of 500 words that they've found and they copy paste it every time they generate a new image. Then there's some sense of craft. There's some sense of like ownership over this thing that I created. Even if Midjourney or something was the one that created it.
But it can't just be effort, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like, if it was just Stable Diffusion, but I had to click 1,000 times per image, just the same button over and over again, or I had a crank under my desk and I had to just turn it to get it to work. It wouldn't be satisfying. Right?
But there is something there with effort, because if you actually, you can like write a 200-word essay in like 5 minutes, or like spend 6 months trying to get it right. I mean, 6 months probably too long, but you can go for like a 2,000-word essay or something. The amount of effort that you actually put, and it has to be actual effort. It can be like just clicking something that that doesn't need to be done, right? I think how you consider that artifact is super, super different. Like I think we might be able to compare. There's something called the IKEA effect. That is basically if you buy a furniture and you assemble it, you're going to have a harder time getting rid of it and like maybe selling it or something. But if you just found something and it's for free, you just take it, you don't have anything to do with it, it's a lot easier to get rid of it. So that goes with
totally.
Stable Diffusion. You generate something, I mean, criticize it, I didn't make it. And if somebody copies, I don't care. But if you spend like a lot of time doing it, then you actually have, it's like kind of it's my thing, right? It took me a lot of effort.
Yeah, for sure. Like in Kyle, in your two examples, like if you had to click 1,000 times and there was no purpose behind that, then that just feels stupid. But if you had to turn a crank, and turning this like hard to turn crank was the only way to produce this thing,
right,
and I feel ownership over it. It's like I did that. Yeah.
Disagree. No.
No.
I think it's deep. I think it's even deeper than that. Yeah. So even imagine the crank was connected to the power source of the computer. So somehow, whatever, it was somehow necessary, but not a two-way street. To me, I would feel less ownership. I wouldn't feel satisfied by that. It's the two-way streetness of it. And this also ties into, I put in the chat about designing tools for artists or designing tools for novices versus experts. One term that really bugs me is a hobbyist. Like, so I love the idea of putting more powerful tools in the hands of more people. But what I don't like about this sort of casual creators idea, like everyone can be a creator. No, not everyone can be a creator. Only people who invest can be. The more you invest, the more you get out of it, right? So why is that? I think it goes back to, Borges writes about the open work. I think is it Borges or is it Eco? Anyway, there's a book called The Open Work, which talks about how the construction of meaning in any artistic work happens as a dialogue between the creator and the viewer, or the experiencer of the work. And I think it's the same with tools. I think to me, craft and like the development of deep expertise, or deep knowledge, developing a deep use of a tool as opposed to a shallow use of a tool, isn't about effort. It's about bringing the user of the tool into dialogue with the kind of creator of the tool or the logic of the tool. And through that dialogue, something new is created that neither would have anticipated before, right? So it's not like an outcome, like Stable Diffusion's not interesting to me anymore. It's a little interesting, but it's less interesting to me now because I kind of learned what it does, and it's like always this feels the same.
Isn't that skill and mastery, right? Like
and mastery mastery takes effort. So that's why effort's important. Is it's not just turning a crank to get the power to go. It's that you're finding something new in between the logic of the system and the thing that I'm bringing into it.
So you can argue that like Mid-Journey, like prompting, right? Like complex prompts and stuff. It's also like trying to find that.
I think in the end, anything can be a craft. You can craft as an activity. It's a thing you do, not a thing that's in a tool or in a material or in a person, right? Well, actually, I guess it's in people. But like you can make a craft out of a kazoo, like playing a kazoo. There could be a craft to that. You could make artwork by scraping sporks on wood, whatever. You can find a craft in anything. So of course you can find a craft in prompting. It sucks. I think prompting is a terrible way to make images. I agree with you, Adam. But of course a craft can develop from it because people can play with whatever they find. But that doesn't make it a good tool. I think as tool makers, we have more responsibilities than that.
Right. Maybe to go back to the earlier point, maybe they're like how attached you feel to it versus how much you feel authorship over it. I know people don't like throwing out puzzles they spent 50 hours on. Like they'll hang up a puzzle they assembled. They don't feel like they made it, but they're like, it's an accomplishment of some kind. So I feel like the way I look at it, like how much you can see yourself in the output is how much you're like kind of feel authorship over it. In that like, if people like feel like their creative decisions and their intention is manifest in the object, then like they feel attached to it. And so if it's a lot of like, and so obviously there's like, I think there's a bit of a spectrum, and I guess from like, I'm reminded of like, I know a lot of recipes, like these easy bake things. There's an anecdote I go back to a lot. They would add an egg to it, not because it needed an egg, but once people cracked the egg and added it in, they felt like they were cooking rather than like they felt more ownership over the output because they'd cracked this egg and put it in. and then like they enjoyed the process more. But just one last little.
That's a dark pattern. That's manipulative. Yeah.
I have so much to say about that egg.
I guess one little just last point from experience with Artbreeder is like one GAN image. I don't think anyone could like own or feel authorship on necessarily. But interesting takeaway for me was that like once people started assembling large collections of images they had made, like 100 images on their profile, there was something that happened at scale, I felt, where like, and maybe it's like the act of curating versus like a single object, where you could kind of feel their authorship or their curatorial intent in that collection. And I felt like at least I would ascribe more ownership to them. Like, oh, they made 100 images and I see certain themes or patterns in them. And so I think that some of it's also like may happen at scale where it's like, all right, there's 100 decisions that are reflected here rather than 5 decisions. And there's something between there that makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. Like that, I think that creation piece is really important. Maybe it'll remain like one of the last like distinctly human things for a while, because one, you're creating what humans like. That seems like you'd be like the best sort of objective function. You're also like curating maybe what you like. And it also reminds me of a Rick Rubin quote, which I really love. His quote is, the artist may not always be the maker, and maybe the person who sees the piece and recognizes the art in it. Just like it's a very beautiful quote by a very creative person. And it's pointing back to that creation is very important.
So is it possible to acknowledge that maybe not everyone is or wishes to be creative as well? So, for example, I have just a few examples just came to me after the conversation. Like I am the person who would like to. I am the person who reads the recipe and immediately thinks of how can I hack it, how can I change it, how can I like customize it to how I am, right? But my partner is a person who loves just following the recipe exactly and measures everything, and a teaspoon has to be a flat teaspoon, and like it's just like down to the book, you know? And she loves cooking like that, you know? Just like there are people going back to the fabric and the textiles, whatever. There's people who like coming up with patterns and mixing colors, and there's people who just want to do the exact same stitch over and over and over again. And the act of making for them is not so much about creativity, it's about other aspects, meditation, precision, homogeneity. It's just, you know, so, and sometimes even the creative process comes with the burden of the self-criticism and the angst, stuff like that. And just some people are just not done for that, or they just don't want that. I think we're having conversations about creativity because I believe maybe most of us do want to be those kind of people and do want to contribute those kind of tools to the general audiences, but that's not how many people work or think, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And for those people, these tools are very, very handy.
These are great. I was being a little. Thank you. I just want to thank everyone. I was being really dogmatic before.
But we're not here we're not here to do standard opinions. That's why Nono brought us. Like he wants the meat, you know.
Yeah. No. So what I hear it just says, I don't know. I might have an impulse to summarize. Joel's like, no, there's different ways of being creative. It's not just like there's one level above. You can make lots of things and see authorship, see someone's hand, and just like the curation of large sets of things, and that's a creative act too. I hear that. And Jose Luis, yeah, you're right, man. I don't always want to be creative. It's exhausting sometimes.
It is very exhausting, and it comes with even a little bit of guilt sometimes. You know,
yeah.
I'm not good enough. You know.
Yeah. So can I go back a bit to the beginning, some of the comments we made about the accessibility and the UI and user experience. So Adam, maybe you can tell us a bit what you're thinking about in this arena, right? Like I personally think one of the things that I always say that I'm surprised is that things like what Joel has done with Artbreeder or some of the things that I worked on the past, or Kyle, you did with your Pix2Pix Photoshop plugins, right? Those are trying to use what's already there, like the machine learning models that are available, and try to make novel user experiences, right? I think there is a lack of that. I know that, now there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of people working on these things. But Adam, can you tell us a bit what you envision for like next generation tools in design and why you think that even though so many papers have been published over the past 8 years, why haven't them been so many tangible things that we can use differently? I mentioned before, like the G radio being a breakthrough, but it's just web forms in some way. So it's not really a novel interaction with machines.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to that exact point, I feel like the products are like far behind where the technology is at. And so it's up to them to like catch up and expose some of this stuff to the broader world. The question of like where, I don't know, I feel like there's probably like 1,000 answers to that question of like where are things going. The one that I'm most interested in is like, I think the exploration with image generation and the surprises and the like creative collaborator are like the results can be really beautiful. And the ideal UI for me should be like you're sitting on that manifold. You're sitting in this like latent space and you're taking a drive. You're really scenic drive through latent space. But you're sitting like you're distinctly sitting in the driver's seat. You're in control over what you're in control of where you're going and the style that you're after. But you can be like pleasantly surprised along the way. Like that to me sounds like both fun. It both sounds like creation. Sounds like you're going to the museum, but also that you can create something beautiful by the end because you found this part of latent space where like this is mine. I love the look of this, and I want this for. Maybe there's an end result, like you want to like create the illustrations for your book. Maybe you're just there to have fun.
Okay. Yeah. What does everyone else think about UIs? Like the ways in which we've been interacting. I mean, I personally think like Midjourney is like the weirdest thing. It's like Discord, and you just throw prompts on the chat as a text command.
It is a strange model, yes.
The social aspect of Midjourney is nice. I'll speak up for the social aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's oddly successful, yeah. Somehow. Mm-hmm. I would have never thought of using Discord as a yeah.
No.
It would have never occurred to me. I'm not that creative.
So and what about Artbreeder? Can you talk a bit about Artbreeder? And I don't know, you have also Prose Painter on Morphogen's website. So maybe Joel, you can share a bit about these projects.
Yeah, sure. And I'd love to put a pin in does everyone want to be creative? I feel like we touched on an interesting thing there that I could probably return to. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of interfaces versus technologies, yeah, it's something I've kind of been central to what I think about. I think there'll be there's a room for a lot of different metaphors, and like driving through exploring kind of is absolutely one of them. It's almost like tools in a shop where I think they'll be very complementary ones. Like I've thought about the metaphor, you kind of they can map to levels of intentionality or levels of expertise. In the same way like a tool shop, there's going to be a wide set of complementary tools that are different for different things. I've seen like a creative director being another organizing metaphor that's equally valid, where someone who can come back, you can direct at a high level through references and language. I think that's another metaphor that also has its place. Artbreeder had this kind of biological metaphor, but within it there was different kind of functions that map to different levels of intentionality. You could kind of do like open-ended exploration, like show me 5 things that are related to this, where it's kind of like, I don't know where I want to go. You show me some options and we'll see. And then things that are more like degrees of intentionality, like these 2 things might be cool together. Let's see what happens if I mix them, right? Combinatorial creativity. And then lastly, there's the gene editing, which is the most intentional. And that kind of maps to different people at different phases in their learning process as well, where certain artists may have got started on simpler tools and they graduate to more sophisticated tools. And neither one is better or worse, but it kind of fits them at different stages in their cycle. So I don't know, I guess my 2 cents, I like to think of the interface is very much more of a process. And I think the technology thinks about it in terms of the artifact, what's the resolution, how fast do you sample it? And then the interface kind of can complement that. Well, what's the actual process around this? And I think the brilliance of Midjourney was how it was so educational, that social aspect, or no one knew how to prompt. And that was really a process, right? It wasn't just a text image tool. It was the process of watching other people prompt and learning from them, and that feedback loop. That was actually the app. So yeah, I guess Prose Painter was trying to have like the metaphor of like ink a little bit, where you can like apply this ink. Maybe you can make your own ink from words and apply it to the thing. But yeah, so thinking about it in terms of like metaphor and process is kind of has been my approach.
Nice. Yeah, and yeah, I think, you know, one other thing that we've been talking about, you loosely mentioned it before, Adam, is how with stable diffusion now, for example, you have control net and instruct peaks to peaks, that in some way that's like telling the machine, okay, I have this example or this kind of image that I want you to mimic, but I want you to map it to a completely different space with a text prompt, right? So it's like kind of you writing what you want to do. So I don't know, I think it's a big shortcut. I'm not sure if that's what Runway ML is using behind the scenes, but that seems like it's a kind of like a big breakthrough, like a before and an after for image creation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it helps you. It gives you it gives you a way to give the model more signal on the thing. Like if you do have like a particular image that you want to generate and it's in your head, giving a quick sketch is certainly a better way of like communicating information than through text. Like that can be really difficult, right? Like if I were to try to describe the desk in front of me, everyone here, I could try to use as many words as possible, but I'm positive each one of you will have a different image in your head of my desk, right? But a simple sketch, and I think everyone would get the gist of what's in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, you know, it's definitely worth at least 1,000 words.
And I like a lot what you said, Joel, about, I mean, we talk about Midjourney and like seeing how other people use the tool like publicly. Like that doesn't happen with ChatGPT. Like you have to wait until people publish screenshots or like publish on their blog or something. And I think, you know, that is, you know, we talked with Pix to Pix in like 2017. We talked about how the tool was changing how you thought or how you created, because there was just a limited set of things that it could do. And with Stable Diffusion is the same. Like you have to kind of adjust your prompts or the way that you do that mapping into whatever the model has, but you're kind of like scratching the model to see what it has inside. So
Right.
there's no way to see what really is. Well, there are ways to see what is on the latent space, but it's not that accessible, right? I'm sure you guys know more than me for that, but at the end of the day, it's like it's a black box. Oh, indeed, the word black box means something I wanted to talk about. What do you think about open models versus closed models, and like how everything's happening? Like it seems it's a race between the open AIs and Google and Facebook and like Stability AI and other people who are trying to mimic what's closed into the open.
I'd also be curious to hear the field's views. I think it's similar. Large foundational models versus smaller, specifically like models that are trained on more narrow tasks. It seems like we moved from the former to the latter. Like it used to be all narrow models, and now we're in the world of big foundational models. Are we here to stay? If so, that has impact on who can, on the openness or closeness of these things. Even if ChatGPT might be open, but like if it costs $250,000 to train a new version, then no one's going to do that, right?
They might. Where do we stand? Where do we stand on the request for the moratorium, the 6 month? Let's not train anything. What do people feel in this call about that?
That's stupid.
I cannot express how angry I was that Mr. Musk was the one signing that. I was like, come on, seriously.
It's just stupid.
Yeah.
It seems like we had OpenAI published papers about I think the ethics of AI and like how to proceed carefully and things like this a few years ago. But now, even if Google and Meta and like OpenAI have these things behind a paywall or like behind an API that they control, there's all of these other organizations trying to do that in open source. So really soon it seems like we're going to have all of these available. There is no way to stop it, let's say, anymore, right? Because you can like people are spending a lot of money in training, they're releasing open source, and then you can, for example, you can fine tune Stable Diffusion with your own hardware. And it's not, it won't take you more than an hour, like a few hours, right? So yeah, I think, I mean, it's a kind of like an arms race that is not gonna stop. It seems inevitable right now.
Back on the question of open versus closed, I don't know. I think a lot about the like Midjourney versus like Stable Diffusion, and I think in the fullness of time, Stable Diffusion will win, or not, maybe not it in particular, but the like open model. I think we saw this play out with like operating systems, Linux 1, in the sense that like it's 100 times more popular than, there are probably 100 times more Linux devices out there than Windows devices. But and also just the things you can do with it, like people can go be creative. Like we've talked about this instruct model, right? The fact that someone else there, someone who now works at OpenAI, could have a creative idea of how to, like, I don't know if you guys know how the model works, but it's pretty creative. Basically, someone could have a creative idea on how to like fine tune Stable Diffusion, and now you have a model that's incredibly interesting, and that's something that you couldn't do at Midjourney, right? I find that, I'll always be like a proponent of that. I think it'll win in the fullness of time. Like, obviously, right now the results are worse than Midjourney, but I don't think that'll be true for very much longer.
I guess there's something to be said about owning the whole platform, in that like a lot of the tech now is kind of just taken open source and wrapped. But when you get the user data feedback, I mean, I'm like being able to own the app and the model together, I feel like may be a real advantage to platforms like that. I guess maybe that's the Apple comparison, where they own the hardware and the operating system, and they can integrate it all together really nicely. And I guess Runway is the other one in that category, where they're doing the custom model and they're doing the app, and they can not just train a model in an academic setting and hope it's useful, but they can really tailor it exactly toward the interface they're building. And so I think there will be real synergies to that approach. Like because I think, to go to the other question, like the fact that there's fewer interfaces and technologies, like the Venn diagram is small of those who can like train the big models and build. I guess OpenAI is the one with ChatGPT. Like they have the application and they have the model, and it's like a very powerful combination together where they can actually do both. And I think there'll be real advantages to owning that whole, especially now, like the data feedback loop seems to be like this flywheel that keeps things growing. There could be a real network effect of that. And so I guess that goes back to the earlier question. And then open versus closed. Yeah, I've also been watching. I hope the open source wins. It'll be good for me. Yeah. I really do.
So,
I think it'll become a commodity, personally.
Yeah. So okay, so in respecting our guests' time, we're at the hour. So if you guys want to start wrapping, that's good with me. I wanted to, there's one topic that I had in mind that we haven't touched upon, is we have two guys here who are teaching at US universities, right? And you were not necessarily, you didn't sign up to teach people how to train models or like how to use models necessarily, but these things just showed up, and everyone wants to use them, so you kind of gotta get into the train. So how do you think AI has changed some of the ways in which you teach, and also how students do their projects? And you're teaching at more like design architecture students. What do you think?
Actually, before you answer, that's the perfect time for me to jet. You gave me the opening, and I'm not a teacher, so my time.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Adam,
I'll
for
say, like, two little. Oh yeah, I'll say two things before I leave. The two little things I had to pin in, and they never fit into the conversation, so now they're gonna fit in. Which is like, one, the best use I found for ChatGPT so far is trip planning. It's been amazing for that. Like I went down to Santa Barbara recently, and I was like, hey, I'll be in Santa Barbara for the weekend. It found the top rated cafes. It was like, by the way, there's a botanical garden. And
you're the third person. You're the third person to say this to me. You're independently.
It's so good for that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's great for trip planning, and there will definitely be some plugin for like Expedia at some point where you just like book your trip. And then so that's great. And then the second one is that I do love that I think one of the advantages of like this next little like wave is that it will, if the interfaces are good, like increase the number of people that can use the product. And use this technology. And one of the benefits of that is that you get all of these like new and interesting people on board, and they can do things that the previous smaller set of people never would have thought of. Kyle's a great example of that, where he's using, like you were using Lobe to do like image classification stuff in weird ways that I would have never thought of, because you have this like very different background, right? And now you're seeing this too with image generation, where you have like, I don't think most illustrators would have thought to combine like the Hulk, like a very like meaty boy, to like a minion. Those little yellow things. But you find images online, and I think they're beautiful of like what is the combination of the Hulk and a minion, and they're funny, and they're creative. And the contrast between the two, like a very weak thing and a very strong. I don't know. And like I don't think a lot of illustrators would have thought of that. They would have been ripping off two people or whatever. But some kid somewhere thought of that. And it's anyway. So I'm excited for the next wave. Thank you so much, Nono, for having me. I'll take my out.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you as well. Yeah, we should hang out. Well, see you.
Nice to see you, Adam.
Cool. Maybe I'll teacher time. Maybe I'll drop now too, or
Sure.
I think no for
So,
okay.
So you're gonna drop as well, Joe?
I might.
Yeah. So the only thing, like, if
Or was there more
you
you wanted
jump.
to talk about?
No, if you jump, go to like the URL I'm gonna put there. So these uploads, and
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
thanks so much
Sounds
for joining. I mean, I would invite everyone to take a look at morphogen.io, I think, and artbreeder.com, made by Joel and his crew. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. I wish I had more time,
Bye.
more of it. But take care.
Nice to see you, Joel.
See you.
All right, I get 2 teachers here trapped forever.
Oh,
Right.
oh boy.
You're not leaving. I guess, I mean, I know it's longer than we committed to, but if you want to use this as the latest topic, and any comments that you have or something.
I would love to hear Jose Luis's point of view on this. I mean, I feel like it's still very much unfolding, and we're not quite sure. I mean, and I think it's telling. I mean, on the call, you've got, probably the best design school in the world, and also Harvard.
Very creative, Kyle. ChatGPT will not accept that.
I had that one like queued up.
That was not ChatGPT. That was you.
But I don't think anyone's figured it out yet. I mean, I could speak to my experience. I mentioned that I'm the instructor of record for a composition course, and we've had a couple of problems with people using ChatGPT to just do their work for them. That sucks, and I think that it's not. I don't. I mean, whatever. I blame the people who did it, but I think I also blame the institution for not knowing how to understand how to deal with this moment. But then again, it was thrust upon us, and the wheels of the academy turned slowly. So I think we're going to need some time on that side of things. Like what I mean is like generative AI in the context of like writing, right? In design, it's quite a different story, because it's not like this image is fake. I mean, all images of design are fake. Right? I mean, that's the whole point. Is like, no, of course this building doesn't exist yet. I'm saying it might, right? So I think it's, I think it's a very, very different conversation. I think at the moment it's about communicating to students like a kind of depth, a little bit more depth than what's the common uses of this is, okay, I go to Midjourney, I type in a prompt, and I get some things out of it. I would love to help people to understand a little bit deeper about all the social technical factors that are marshaled behind that moment, and what it means to be using the tool, whose work you're relying on, whose shoulders you're standing on, why are there no people and images of buildings, right? Like why does it do women's faces really well, but not other things, right? Like all like the kind of biases that are embedded in the tool, and the kind of social things built up around it. Right now, I see my role as just kind of explaining that, but it doesn't really answer your question, right? Because it will change the way we design. but I don't think we know how yet. Yeah.
I guess for me, and I go back to that one research class that is specifically about human-computer interaction. I think for me, as someone who teaches both computation and how to work with digital agents creatively, what I have felt is that over the course of the years, many students come to me very excited and very hyped about learning computation, etc., etc. But it always felt that at some point, teaching computation was, there is some like conceptual groundbreaking behind computation, but it felt more like just like a set of skills, if you will, almost technical skills. But I think the need or the wish to learn how to interact with neural networks creatively has been a much larger leap in many aspects, because it, as opposed to just regular computation, if you will, it has forced all of us, my students and myself, to go much, much deeper and challenge much, much more conceptually what it means to be human, what it means to be a creator, than what the computational revolution brought in, if you will. And this has happened very, very specifically last semester, just because of last summer, diffusion models, text to image, how groundbreaking and how disruptive it was for all of us in the creative field, and how during the semester ChatGPT was published and now everyone was freaking out about it, etc., etc. So something that I find very interesting is that no matter how many technical workshops I taught, how many neural networks we built, how many APIs we pinged throughout the semester, by far, far, far the most exciting class that we had last semester was when I invited two friends of mine, an artist and a lawyer who specializes in intellectual property. And she gave a lecture and we had a panel conversation about authorship and property and ownership of art, And everyone, it was just...
Is that Harvard? Is that Laura at Harvard at GST?
Yeah. I'll give you her. I'll give you her reference. She is amazing.
I think I may have met her. There was a lawyer from Harvard who's interested in intellectual property, and I think I may have met her at Stochastic Labs, which is where Joel is, in 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Berkeley,
might be a different person. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
My friend's called Karen Gover.
Okay. No, different.
Yeah. But the lecture was fantastic, but then you could really feel the energy of the room of everyone wanting to understand, but then what does it mean to be an artist? And what does it mean to own art?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
These are not questions. Yeah. Teaching Grasshopper, this never comes up.
Exactly. It never comes up. There's no challenge in humanity as deeply as it comes with using all these tools, And that has been challenging for me as a human and as an educator, because I try to, my teaching style is never very dogmatic or like this is my truth or this is the truth. It's just, I try to foster conversation and participation, but I also have my own opinions. So there's a very different, I don't know. It's difficult.
That's super interesting. And you're totally right. And I'm doing a half semester class right now on computation, but I just punted. I was like, you guys are using Grasshopper in your structures class, and and the designer team wants it, so we're just going to do Grasshopper. I only have 8 weeks. I just can't do the AI stuff also. So I gave them a couple of lectures, but didn't really teach anything. I punted, and I don't know. I kind of regret it, but it's a very, very different. It almost like it's not the same world, right? At all. It's very like Grasshopper, very analytical. Problem decomposition, logic, chaining, planning, etc. But the world of generative AI as a user is it's more like creative work. It's like swimming. It's it's very, very different. And the issues it brings up are also quite different. And the capacities it rewards. Like imagine the kinds of students that do well in one thing versus another. They are different students most often, right? Because it's just like different ways of thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
So it presents some really interesting challenges.
It is very different. And I started the class thinking that we were going to be thinking a lot about neural networks, and I ended the semester having thought so much about humans, and it felt like the brief of the project, the brief of the semester was let's make a project, but I felt like everyone kind of wanted to write like an opinion paper at some point, you know. It's, hopefully not with ChatGPT, you know. Anyway, and so what is that going to look like next year? Who knows? Because I didn't see this coming February last year. So
we're trying to do a post-mortem, right? Like there would be a time where we say, okay, this is what happens, or I guess, right? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, can you guys bet what are the new models that we're going to see between now and September? Because I need to be ready. Because when I start teaching in September, I need to have like some plan, you know. Is it going to be text to video? Is that what's coming up this summer?
It seems like that's sort of already in the works. I've seen some stuff.
Gen 1.
The other thing people ask about a lot is the text to 3D. I don't know. I'm kind of more interested in. I think it'll be more impactful in design, not the like next new media that kind of rolls out of the labs, but instead how like more like on the level of interfaces that allow you to integrate what we already know about into the totality of the design process. Right now, everyone, and rightfully so, like Andrew Cudless talks about his amazing Instagram feed as sketches. Like he uses Stable and Midjourney the way he would sketch in a sketchbook, right? It's like thinking through ideas in a very loose way, but not developing ideas, not something you would like get open CAD software to do. Right?
Which was the original spirit behind the processing sketches and the processing foundation.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right, totally. So it's kind of more, there. But then the architecture tends to be a kind of longer chain workflow than many fine art practices. I don't know if that's fair to say, but I'm interested in like the tools that'll help us intervene in the middle. Like, you know, I've got 4 weeks before my final review. I've got a 3D model. I'm going to image it now. What tools can I use to help me do that, right? Or no, the kitchen counter has got to go here. I can't move that. I don't want new wild ideas for kitchen layout. I want to develop this idea.
That is exactly the hope of the class that I teach in September. Maybe you should fly here, and then you could teach in the not so good university, you know.
So there's a comment here. There's a comment here on the chat that says "image to smell" could be a goal.
Boy, I don't know if I want that.
I think one thing I've been seeing is that Descript, the tool that I use to edit podcasts and video that is AI powered, right? It's a workflow based tool that is using voice synthesis and like transcription and like all these things to allow you to do a workflow, right? Like it's kind of like an editing workflow. And it seems like Runway at the end of the day has pivoted toward the same. Like they're trying to make it easier to edit videos and make it faster, but also they're adding the image generation thing where you can kind of skip the line on visual effects so you don't have to actually go through the tedious process of rendering. So I personally think that it would come to, we will forget about AI tools and we will get just programs that have AI powered commands and things like that. Photoshop, for example, has already for like selection, like segmentation, like you upload a photo and it selects the sclera or your eye or your hair or like the subjects on a picture automatically. And nobody really, we know there is ML behind it, but they don't say it that much. So it's not like you're using ML to edit photos. You're just using Photoshop, right? So I think it will come down to that we will forget a bit about AI and we'll just focus on product and software implementations of the tool. And, when it comes to architecture and construction, I think like, somebody would like Revit to be powered by AI or some of these products that, that are hard to work with, right? But I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah. I would rather just AI just make my Revit model for me.
Yeah.
That's a part of the process I would rather automate entirely. Sorry, am I biased?
Yeah. There was a paper I saw recently that is a framework with like animated kid sketches. So there's also like you draw something by hand and it animates it automatically and the character starts moving. So I think it's going to get rid of handcraft and stuff, but at the same time it's going to allow you to like also interact with things that you do by hand in new ways that were not possible before.
So Adam was using ChatGPT for trip planning. What are you using in your daily life, Kyle? Like the most prosaic.
As I'm multitasking. I am asking ChatGPT to trip plan for me because Adam recommended it, and we were just trying to work out our summer travel plans. But it looked pretty good. I haven't really seen it yet. What am I using it for? It's a little. I mean, this is being recorded, so I don't know if I can say all of the things. But like if I have to do some professional communication, I think I'll just speak very broadly. It's like a professional email to someone that I don't know, but I'm trying to write very like that is a good kind of starting point. I've used it for that.
That's an even better because if your English is not your first language, then it becomes even more useful in that sense.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I started using it for recommendation letters.
I was going to mention that.
It's great. It's great. But what I'm doing is that I also attach at the end of the letter, like this letter was edited and generated by AI, and these were the prompts. So I actually attach the bullet points that I use for the sake of transparency, and also that makes it easier for the one who reads it to say, oh, this is what he really wanted to say. These bullet points, That's it, So
you put that at the end.
At the end, yes.
So you already read the automated one?
You have like the regular letter first page. The second page is like disclaimer. This letter was generated and edited using AI, and this was the prompt. Boom, and the bullet points that I used,
I'm actually using it. Oh, sorry, there you go.
I was going to I can imagine like a Gmail plugin where like you just write in very coarse language or like bulleted points or whatever, compose a professional email that says this, and then it just sends it and translates it, right? And we trust that works. But then also the reverse, the decoder on the other side.
Summarize.
Which seems like at that point we've reached like NFT levels of uselessness right, with the technology. Because we can just be speaking more directly to one another. And that would
but that is me as an European who came to the US and had to learn to give feedback that had like the like the cookie and the sandwich and whatever. I was like, why can I not just say what I think? We do that in Europe, and no one cries. It's fine,
Yeah.
Anyway, we said this was recorded, right?
So something that is probably not as fun, but I'm using it actually for work, like for programming. So there's like sometimes I might spend like maybe an hour or like 30 minutes trying to find the right code sample for something I want to do. And then you find that, okay, I forgot about ChatGPT, and then you go type the thing that you need, and it actually it seems like it's able to interpolate or like write an example that doesn't really show on Google searches, but it creates working code for really specific things sometimes. And that, I don't know, I think that's super powerful.
I have students right now who are working on a project where they give ChatGPT a description of a floor plan that they want, literally, and then they give it a JSON schema. They say, ChatGPT, can you please return the bounding boxes of the furniture using this JSON schema? And they write the JSON schema, and freaking ChatGPT does it.
But what do they input?
They input like a large prompt that has like a literal description of what they want. It has a JSON representation of the boundary of the room, and they ask ChatGPT to give them bounding boxes for the furniture layout.
To place furniture.
To place furniture on this floor plan. Wow. It's like an interior design kind of thing, right? But they give ChatGPT like, I want you to give me the result as a JSON object following this schema, and the schema is like, an array of like XY locations, width and height, and like a category of what object it is,
That's interesting.
And so does it. It's crazy, and it does like very feasible results,
Can we try? So could you just tell it to make up the JSON floor plan as well?
Yeah,
So you don't
yeah,
have to
that's what
make
it does. Like it's they're writing a paper now for Acadia, which is due in 3 days, by the way.
Okay.
So hopefully you will see that in October or November if it works out.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that seems super cool. What an interesting approach. I imagine there's lots of variations that you could do with that. I saw that this artist Tom White from New Zealand. He did some very early ML stuff, and he ran the NeurIPS creativity workshop one year. He was working with like SVG images, where it would ask ChatGPT like, make the SVG code for a human face, and it would be like this very simple polygon, and then he would say things like, make it angry, and it like made the eyebrows go down. Right? It was remarkable that it had an understanding of the qualitative intention of the result and how that translates to arrangement of shapes in an SVG file.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think I have a 12. In 3 minutes, I have another thing to get to. What's happening here? Screen. Are you going to try something? You going to try it?
We're not hearing you, no.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
can you see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, so it generates this, and yeah, I guess it's already placed. Yeah, but I don't know. It's on something weird. We don't have a real layout, but yeah, we'll take a look at this some other time. So let me see. All right. So yeah, I think this is a good moment to wrap it up. So we have at 86 minutes, so that's more than the 45 or 60 that you said you had. So it's been really fun. I mean, it's the first time that I do record a live thing for the podcast and with so many people. So I'm glad that you all were able to show up. The only person who couldn't really show up was Cristobal Valenzuela from Runway ML, but we already had him on the podcast. Kyle has to make his way into a solo podcast interview at some point. I recorded one with Joel last week, and we'll release when we can get it. So yeah, I don't want to get you. I know you have a meeting now, so thanks so much for your time. It was super fun to see you in person a few weeks ago and to have you here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This was a great conversation, and yeah, I'm so glad we got to hang out for a little bit longer, Jose Luis. We haven't had that chance since I don't know, Philadelphia, I think, but
not even. We didn't have a drink at the time.
So Kyle is leading the MDes program at UC Berkeley. So you guys are.
Are you a director now? Oh.
No, I'm the associate director. I'm number 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Eric Paulos is currently the director.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Nice.
So you guys are kind of like on the both streams of the US doing similar
things. We're competitors. We're competitors.
So I brought you to fight.
That's right.
All right.
So who won? Let's make the audience vote.
I'll leave before you answer.
Okay, so
good to see you, Kyle.
Just a reminder. I'll send you the upload URL. So when you leave, just please go to the URL so the video uploads. And
cool.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'll stay here with the audience for a bit more, and then we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Jose Luis. Thanks, Kyle. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, so I'm here by myself, and as I said, if you guys want to join the call with me to celebrate the 100th live stream, we're here, and anyone could do that. You can send questions just to me, or you can join by going into the audience view on Riverside at nono.ma/live/100 and clicking on call in. So if nobody has any questions or nobody wants to join the call, it's okay. But if you do, I would be happy to stay here for a few more minutes. And now that I have you online, I would love to hear on the chat at least where you guys are connecting from, how you found us, and if you've been following the live stream, if you watch any of the previous live streams, and where are you connecting from. I know the location, or at least where you guys were before, some of you that have been participating on the chat, but I would like to take this chance for you guys if you want to say something else. Okay, I'm going to send this upload link to Riverside upload. I'm going to send this to Jose Luis and to Kyle. Okay. And yeah, I can see comments on YouTube and Riverside. So for Riverside, Rob says that he's on San Luis and he found the live stream through the suggestive drawing study. So that was like the first thing related to AI that I published on my website. Ricardo Cesar Rodriguez from Brazil. So these are like all-time viewers. I actually had the chance to talk on call with Rob earlier this week, and I don't think I've ever. We talk once, Ricardo? I don't remember. We had a call like a few years ago, or like last year. We also had Juanda before on the chat, and I've been with him in person because he used to live here in Malaga, in my hometown. And Nushin in New York City found you via the early episodes of your podcast and saw this event on LinkedIn. Okay, that means that LinkedIn works and I should share more stuff. So we have Viral Takar, an ex-colleague here as well. I'm not sure if you're still with us, but do you want to say something on the chat, or if you want, you can call in also and join the call. So Vidal says he's from Toronto, and he says that he was more fortunate because he got to work with me for some time. I actually was really fortunate because I've learned a lot from Vidal while we worked together at Autodesk, building AI tools for the AEC industry. And we also had Sora before, who's been on the podcast before. So there is, I'll try to put links. I'm probably gonna forget all of this, but I might put links on the video notes on YouTube or when we release the podcast for some of these things. Sora, Matre, Jose Luis, and Adam have been multiple times on the show. And Joel Simon, we recorded with him 2 weeks ago. And, Kyle, we couldn't, but we're going to record on the future. And Cristobal Valenzuela from Runway ML, he's been on the podcast twice as well, at least. And he couldn't make it today. He's really busy with a lot of launches and a lot of product updates and things. So you can visit his website, runwayml.com. So I'll put it on the chat, runwayml.com. I'm going to put some links here because now that you guys are online, the links go directly to you. And you can see all the podcast episodes you probably know, but are there. And we talked about Artbreeder before. So Artbreeder. And yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so I don't have anything else to tell you today. So without any more, Viral is calling in. Awesome. It was great discussion, refreshing. Okay, so we have Viral here. If you want to join. Hey, Viral.
Hey, no.
How's it going?
Great. It was really good. It was really refreshing. And I just I think this which was missing in like traditional way of traditional computer science way of thinking around AI and machine learning. So thank you so much. This was really useful.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I would say Viral is a colleague. He worked with me at Autodesk. I've been at Autodesk for 6 years. And in the short run, Viral will have also some videos and some stuff on his channel. He already has some videos, but I'll make sure that we have some quality time with Viral. He's a machine learning expert. He knows way more about machine learning research, right? Actually writing models and like what all the machine learning things mean than I do. I've just been exploring in a different side of things, I would say. So yeah, Vida, if you don't mind, I'm gonna share your channel on here. So let me look So we put it there. And yeah, maybe while I look for the channel, do you want to tell us what your intention is with the channel? Because I know that, Vito also teaches on his own time ML. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So I am about to start something called a paper pencil AI approach. So the idea of paper pencil AI is, because there is lots of material around machine learning and AI where people teaches you how to code stuff, how to write codes. But the idea of paper pencil AI is to actually have the intuition behind those algorithms. Like, can I use paper and pencil to figure out the weights of a neural network? What could be the easiest way to get the intuition of what's going on behind when I train a neural network? What is a model? What is a function? What is parameters? So the idea is to give a very human intuition behind non-computer science or non-mathematical background individuals who are jumping in this field. So that's the purpose of the channel. That's what I'm trying my best to push as an material to all my students. And yeah, that's the idea.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think the paper pencil approach is the one that has worked the most out of the YouTube teaching videos that I put out there. I think some people just want to go to the code implementation, but when you get students that actually just want to understand the concept, so the paper and pencil really works, and then you find ways to code that in TypeScript or Python or C# or whatever you want to apply it to. But the thing is that you understand what you're doing, because for me, I think there is actually a disconnect many times between understanding a concept and actually implementing it. For me, implementing, for example, Q-learning for reinforcement learning, the implementation seems sometimes trivial, like it's just like a few lines of code for like a simple policy, but understanding the actual concept and the equations and why it makes sense that way is really hard. So, I think you need to understand both ways. And it's even more important to understand the theoretical plane and how to implement it, because many of these things usually are now open source already inside of PyTorch and TensorFlow. And, you just need to understand what they're doing and why they work, right? These approaches. And, Rob is asking here for Viral, did you have foresight that diffusion models will take off the way they did? For him working higher up in the stack, it seemed to come out of nowhere.
So I think I have been following similar models and concepts since I think 2017-18, which was the fundamental models around diffusion models. But yes, I was also surprised by seeing the quality of the results, if I put it that way. Like I was expecting those models to be out there, but the amount of quality we are seeing in those models nowadays, it's extraordinary. It's really awesome to generate those kind of images or those kind of results. And I think that's mainly driven by the availability of huge quantity of data, as well as the computational resources, I think. So that's for sure a surprise for me as well, the quality aspect.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm trying here to see if anyone else would like to join. I actually am liking this format a lot, because it's allowed me to to bring together many different people, something that is really hard to do in person in these days. And everyone was in a different city except for Joel and Kyle. And yeah, maybe. So what did you think of the format, Viro? Like, we can do this with other people as well.
No, this is, I think I attended last 2 consecutively live streams, and almost they were very similar in the format. And I think this also gives the opportunity to bring new perspective. Like sometimes we are so much carried away by our own biases in the development process that we miss the simple nuances and like simple way of or looking at things from a different perspective. For example, I think Jose Luis shared the idea of textile, and that's very interesting. I kind of come from a town in India which is very much famous for its textile industry, and I have seen that transition from handmade to actual industrialization of textile, and then again having the value of handmade stuff more. But I couldn't see and correlate the same transition in the field of AI. So I think this format gives more perspective. I think that's the idea, and I feel like people won't feel restricted in terms of like, speaking their opinions. It's more natural discussion. It's more human approach, also, like if I put it that way. So yeah, that's really interesting and cool.
Yeah, we were talking before about made by a human thing, right? I don't know. I think there even like prices are going up so much that even like a cardigan, for example, that is made by a machine, you can get charged like $100 something or something. So how much it is if you actually spend 2 weeks making it, right? How much do you have to charge? I mean, maybe if you make it as a gift for somebody, it's like a gift of appreciation, right? I am gifting you this. It took me all this work, but how much would you have to actually charge if you want to live from that, right? If that, I guess like that's the problem that we haven't really talked about. That I think it's a bit. It's a topic that is being talked too much. It's like we're going to displace workers at the end of the day. We've been talking more about self-expression and like creativity and other things, but there's going to be a displacement from people who only know how to do a craft and then they get paid for it. And now it's not going to make what they're going to do is going to be a niche thing that people pay for if it's good quality and they like that is made by human. But if they don't care, nobody's going to pay for that, right? So there is also that discussion. But I do think that handcraft will still be something that we do for, it's more like an entertainment or like a fulfillment thing that you need to do these things by hand to feel that sense of achievement that we were talking about before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. And sometimes it's also, I think it like for many people, this is an escape or kind of a form of a meditation as well. When they have their own space, they have their own time when they are into that creative zone. So I think the generative tools are really good at helping to speed up the process, but it never give you that satisfaction about creating things and yeah. So I think that's a discussion point, how to value it and whether it can be industrialized or not. But I also see it from this angle. Like I see there is a distinct mass who prefers, let's say, handmade textile, or there could be a mass who prefers more organic food over, let's say, other types of food. So there could be a separate area where people might prefer more hand generated or hand like human art forms than, let's say, the automated art forms.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm still to see we can get unleashed and where we're going. But I think it's really fun to be able to see and be able to use it as they come, right? I think the one thing that I've been talking about a lot lately is that choose something you want to work on and continue working on it, because if you're always looking at the biggest hype, you're going to get lost in like every week or every 2 weeks, every day. If you're looking at Hacker News, you might be trying a new thing. And I think that's a really disruptive way of working, because we're kind of like a herd of working that everyone's starting to work and exploit the same thing. So I think you need to pick your battles and like choose what you want to really work on. And there you can go and you can probably innovate better and create more meaningful applications of machine learning. Was for whoever has been watching, I think we're going to wrap it up now. It's been really fun. It's been almost 2 hours that we've been live with 5 guests, including Viral. Like I was counting that Viral might show up, so I'm really happy, and I really appreciate that you even wanted to show on camera and tell the world like what you thought as well. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. We have there is already on, so for those of you who are watching on Riverside, there is a YouTube live stream that is going to be archived directly, and you can access on my YouTube channel there. I'm going to put the link here to the so Nono Martinez Alonso, so you can go there and watch this later as well, and edit down this conversation that we had for the podcast, and we'll release it as an episode. Maybe, I don't know how cleaned up it will be, but it will be a bit cleaner than what we did today. I think the conversation was really good. This is a success, I think, because this is the first conversation that we've recorded on Riverside for the podcast and even streaming. Thanks to everyone who's like saying congrats on 100 live streams. It's been a big stretch goal. I actually have to say I slowed down a bit at the beginning of the year because of a lot of changes and things that are going on in like life. And I tried to take a slower pace for like having somebody help me edit the podcast and make a process a bit more sustainable long term. And for the live stream, I've been trying to live stream only once a month as well, because there were a lot of stuff. But I'm trying to see if I set up a new studio. Viral has been giving me some tips on that. And yeah, we need to talk about that. And when I have the studio, I'm probably going to be doing this, like live conversations with other people and also live streams more often. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. Yeah, everyone who's watching, I would recommend you go subscribe and click on the bell on YouTube if you want to get notified when I go live next or when I upload new videos. Hit the like button if you're on YouTube. That is really important. And also, really, really recently, I mean, like I think a week or 2 weeks ago, I managed to get also to the benchmark to be able to monetize YouTube. So the gains is negligible. It's like 50 or 60 cents a day or something. So I'm not gonna quit my job because of that. But I think it's a really nice thing. Like we already have like around 2,200 followers on YouTube and a lot of played hours. So it means that people are enjoying or like finding useful some of the videos that we're putting up there. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, like maybe it is useful, Viral, and I don't know if you have to go. Do you have to go? You can stay for a few more minutes.
I can stay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so if you can stay, that's great. So I'll do this with you here as my companion. So if we present screen here and I share my YouTube channel, right? So this is nono.ma, Nono Martinez Alonso on YouTube, right? And what you can see here is my YouTube channel. Getting Simple is kind of the overarching brand. That was the podcast, but it's kind of an umbrella for everything. As you can see here, is videos on creative AI or machine learning, and podcasts on creativity, tech, and culture. The live stream is going on here, and we have if you go to the live tab or look for the playlist of the live stream, you can see there's like 100 videos of them. Like the average time, I think, is an hour. There's some that are like 3 or 4 hours. Some others are 30 minutes. But there is a lot of stuff. There is like from like the libraries that you can use on React to draw on the web to like using machine learning models to automating creation of GIFs, some live podcasts that we recorded, some generative models that we've played with. Everything. I try to make everything as playful as I can. There is a lot of like web development, machine learning concepts, and many things. And as you can see, also the like all the graphics and stuff change a lot. So I'm gonna open this really quickly. I don't wanna pass through audio, but the only thing, even if you don't see it too well, the one thing I want to show is like the first live stream here. I don't even have a chroma as I've been having. I had like a different webcam. I didn't have the same gear, the same mics, the same headphones, and all that stuff. And if you go and look at the progression of the 100 live streams, I got to be a lot more comfortable to be talking to this camera that is in front of me. So I with that, I want to say practice makes not perfect, but makes better. And I would encourage everyone to show up, even if it's like writing online or like blogging or recording videos. I think, Viral, this is something that you told me before, that with sharing some of those ideas and things, it motivated you to also do more stuff. You can see the podcast here. So there's a playlist for the podcast on YouTube, and you can also see all the video tutorials. And the last thing I'll kind of plug here, I'll share, is that if you go to gettingsimple.com, you can actually see the website where all the podcasts, the edited version of the podcasts, are shared. The latest one is with Alex O'Connor. We recorded that in Vegas in last December, and it talks about many things related to what we talked about before. But then there are other podcasts that have nothing to do with this. Like this one talks about art, creativity, and personal evolution. This one is about writing, drawing, and sense of place. And this one is about mathematical design and writing. And you see some familiar faces here, like Adam Menges was here. Jose Luis has been on the podcast a few times. This is Cristobal Valenzuela from Runway ML. Jose Luis again, Adam. This episode from Adam, I will copy there because I would really recommend. So yeah, with all of that, I just want to say, do whatever you feel like you need to do, but don't care too much about like how it's done at the beginning, and try to make it more professional as you go along. So yeah, with that, this is the only celebration I get to do for 100 live streams. So I'll cheers with water because I'm not doing anything else.
And congratulations, Nono, on that.
Cheers for many, many, many more. I have the goal to try to focus on not on quantity as opposed to quality, but to creating quality content without over obsessing about how it is edited and how it's released and how it's formatted. And I don't know how much time I spend doing a thumbnail for this live stream, right? It's like a dummy thing, but it takes a lot of time. So you gotta also unlearn those things of like trying to make everything pixel perfect. And yeah, this wouldn't make any sense without you. I have really appreciated all of the people who have joined online live, right? Like the event on Riverside. This kind of like duplicity between Riverside and YouTube has been a bit weird, but it's okay. I mean, I think if I was streaming to Twitch and other platforms, it would get a bit too crazy. But I think for the future, we can try to centralize everything on Riverside and see how it goes. First time I'm editing a podcast with so many different people. Let's see how Riverside does its job, which is for the kind of techie people, it's a platform that uploads every participant's video and audio individually to the cloud as we are on the call, but also gets a low res video of them and allows everyone to listen and see each other in real time. So it's a really powerful tool, because if you want to do what we've done today by hand, it's almost impossible. And then later I have every single track of audio and video of every participant individually, even for Viral that joined later, or for Joel, we're going to have separate tracks. So if you're interested on like podcasting tools and like all these recording utilities, I'll be more than happy to talk about it on the podcast. So again, follow this guy, follow Viral on YouTube. I put the link there. And let's see. So at least I got you 1 subscriber, I have to say. 3 subscribers up. That's awesome. So, the start. There was one day when I also had 23 subscribers. So everything's going up. All right. Bye-bye.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
So,
so
Viral,
much,
don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. I'll stay with you here. Once again, it was Nono Martinez Alonso here. This is the Getting Simple podcast and the Creative AI YouTube live stream. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening. And I'll see you next time. Remember that you can find a detailed list for the episode whenever it's released at gettingsimple.com, and that you can submit questions at gettingsimple.com/ask. Bye. All right, so now I'm going to do a few things. We're still here. Somebody called HT on YouTube is saying hi, hello, but we're leaving now. So if you want to send us any messages, you can do on Discord or send it as a YouTube comment to the live stream. I'm going to end the stream. So bye to everyone on YouTube. 1, 2, 3. Bye-bye. We're still streaming on Riverside. So we're going to